Now, it's safer and maybe better to start with the parts we do agree, but sooner or later we will have to come to grips with places in which we differ.
Interesting. Does Monty have any comment on that?
Well, I think that this meeting of different religions with science is very particular, because science is only one. It's universal, it's global, and religions are not. So a dialogue is not possible unless one thinks to the common ideas in all religions, but this is restrictive. And I think that it's important that different religions are present on the earth, because they offer different approaches to the knowledge of the reality of God. And it's important to have biodiversity even in religion. Anyway, what is the most important at this moment is the search for a language, for a common language, for a paradigm, for a terminology in which to understand each other. And this is not obtained by removing the old terms, because they have a lot of content which should not be lost. We could say, instead of conscience, let us say AB. This would be not a success. We should use and suffer the reality contained in the terms which science will use in the future. I think that terms like God should come back in scientific discussions. This is very difficult to understand, and of course, by God we should mean not a person, a defined entity which is different in different religions, but the eternity, the universe, the order, something which we scientists could define, even if the definition will be surely unsatisfactory. But we scientists are used to work with unsatisfactory definitions. This is the way science progresses, finding new terms, new definitions, and new agreements.
So that's an important, I think, concept. But as a scientist, let's say you're a biologist in genetics, and Professor Mann is a cosmologist and physicist. And from the scientific, let's say, fields, I think some of the areas that we would like to explain, at least some conception of God with a semi-rational approach, some kind of a rationality, I think, that to it. So is there any, let's say, area or conception that we could do in that direction? Any suggestions or ideas?
Do you want to go first?
You mean the concept of God?
From the scientific, let's say, explaining about the
Yes.
concept of God.
Of course, this is the richest concept in our existence, the concept of God. And any definition is a reduction of this concept, surely. So we shouldn't be afraid to introduce in the scientific papers the concept of God.
We should not be afraid.
We should not be afraid of it, even if this produces controversies and difficulties. But we should try. I have introduced the concept of soul in my talk, which is also controversial. One can say mind, in the scientific, and also consciousness, but not soul. So I wanted to introduce this concept. Consider all the difficulties that this creates, but we need such difficulties.
If you're asking what are possible future ideas for conferences, I would have a number. I think the mind-brain problem of consciousness is one. I see there's actually already a meeting planned on that. I think the whole notion of what information is would be another one. I think a conference about archaeology, insofar as religious faith goes, all religious faiths, or well, many religious faiths, are founded on things that are purported to have actually happened. So what kind of evidence is there that these things actually did happen? And that's especially important, I think, to Christianity. But one could imagine a conference in which we investigate archaeological evidence in favor of, or not, for certain religious ideas and concepts. In bioethics would be another one, obviously. We saw a question today about abortion. But the whole issue of a conference on bioethics, what does it mean for somebody to be alive, and what decisions do we make when life begins and when life ends, and the quality of life would be another one. There's the traditional creation-evolution one, of course. I think another possibility would be a conference, this would be more abstract, on what it means to have a unified theory. Physicists and string theorists yearn for their grand unified theory. That's, in my opinion, a religiously motivated drive and has something in common with the desire to achieve union with the ultimate consciousness in your terms, or perhaps I would say union with God in my terms. So those are several. One other one that I think is important in the science-religion dialogue is a conference on peace. 1/4 of the world's scientists work in defense-related industries, and I think personally it's disingenuous to say that they have nothing to do with decisions about war or conflict. 1/4 of scientists are active participants in this manner. Many receive grants from defense industries. I think there needs to be some ethical accountability there. So those are half a dozen ideas that I could suggest.
I think in that connection, I think in the United States, I think there is a Union for the Concerned Scientists, UCS, Union for Concerned Scientists. I think quite a number of well-known scientists are involved. They're trying to make a point that the scientists should be involved in human rights or the peace. Peace, I think that's
But I also think it's a place where the science-religion dialogue could go somewhere, because all religious faiths have a lot to say about peace. And it's something that I think we should talk about in that context.
I'm actually planning a international summit on science and spirituality for world peace.
I see.
But that is scheduled in 2007. I already started a little working.
Okay, I see.
So that this is a very important field, that the science-religion dialogue for world peace. I think scientists should be involved in any peacemaking process, otherwise it will never be lasting peace. That's that's the conception that. Regarding this life and its beginning, it is true that in different, I think, religious traditions, there are certain differences of, conceptions. And so if in a gathering of this nature, if we could think about how to, let's say, make a very little serious attempt from different religious traditions, how to we find out, as I said, commonality. Certainly, yes, this is a common to all. But this is the area that we should try to identify, try to make it a little more study and exploration, and try to see how much one can agree and how far we can approach. I think that some ideas of that would be healthy to make another attempt how
To explore the differences, you mean?
and also exploring the differences as well as how to come a little closer after exploring.
I see. Well, I guess I'm optimistic enough to think that it is worth a try. The problems, science is often praised for its great progress, and it's true, it has made great progress, but the progress it's made is because of its own self-limitations. And you could argue that science has dealt with easier problems by being reductionistic, by being particular and definite. Yes, it has made great progress, but it's also done so by not dealing with life's hardest questions, whereas religious faith from the outset addresses the most difficult questions. So I think that needs to be kept in mind. But that being said, I'm optimistic enough that we can make progress on difficult questions. I would cite the field of cosmology as being one in which enormous progress has been made on questions that I remember as a grad student, people told me we're probably never going to know the answer, and now we in fact have answers, or at least partial answers, to some very difficult questions. One of them, the age of the universe. People wondered if we'd ever be able to come better than a factor of 2, and now we're down to about 1% or 2% error. So similarly, I think it will take hard work and patience and the proper mix of people. If religious differences are going to be discussed, it's probably better done in smaller groups where people really have time to wrestle with the issues, instead of a very large meeting where somebody might say something that would offend somebody and then the whole room erupts in a big fight. But I think sooner, as I said earlier, sooner or later we've got to tackle these differences, and hopefully there will be some meeting of the minds, at least partially. Sure.
Did you see the book by Unwin, Stephen Unwin? That is called
Stephen Unwin, yeah.
The Probability of God Calculation. It said it's,
I've heard of it. I'm not too
I have that book. It's a small book. It said the probability of God through this formula equation is 67%. So it looks like he's a physicist.
decent odds anyway.
Yeah. So I think the encouraging thing is that I think many scientists are becoming interested in the question about God. I think this is a very I think at this time.
Yeah.
I would say it's a very encouraging development.
Yeah. I think the God question is not going to go away, and I would contend more than that, the derivative questions. What does it mean to be human? How do we work together as a society, as a world? What is the meaning of my life? What happens to me when I die? What is the proper way to reconcile individuals of differing beliefs and views? These questions are not going to go away. I think a number of scientists in the generation preceding me felt at least some of them would go away. They're not. I think this is a good thing to have this recognition. Yeah, I agree with you. And I hope scientific thinking can make a valuable contribution to that.
So someone, do you have anything to say about God question?
Well, I think the most crucial point, and at the same time the most equivocal concept, is that of evolution. Everybody speaks of evolution, but there is not a common idea of what is it. There are at least 3 evolutions. Evolution as progress, evolution as adaptation, and evolution as just change. So we use this term, but we don't know what
Different
we are dealing
ideas,
with.
but used interchangeably.
Yes. And this is really very important. There is the organic evolution, of course. I know better. but also evolution of the universe, evolution of the civilization, and possibly different concepts should be used in the three fields. So I would like very much to see a meeting on evolution and its meaning.
Yeah, Professor Sarvanti, when I came here, I heard from different scholars that Professor Sarvanti is very much against Darwinian evolution. And he said his name has been very much among some scientists, and I met some scientists. And because I was only meeting with for this program, and then people tell me that Professor Sarvanti has a very strong opinion against Darwinian evolution. So he sometimes is taken as maybe he has departed from a scientific field. So this comment I heard from some of the people, but so I find it very interesting that so this I think this Darwin and I think God. I think we're going to be discussing. I think tomorrow we have a little session.
Yes.
So I think maybe at the time we can explore a little bit. So I think our lunch time is also there. And,
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.